Hello and welcome to the show. Now, regular viewers of my videos will be aware that I do not particularly like oversteering cars. Just the way I tend to drive, my driving style and whatnot, doesn't tend to work with vehicles that slide around. I don't tend to get that much speed out of the cars. So, when I wanted to try dirt oval racing, which as you can see involves, well, quite a lot of sliding around, it is a rather different sort of a challenge for me. This is very, very different sort of driving. Not only is, well, simply this kind of racing completely different. I hadn't played iRacing for quite a long time, probably well over a year, and had never done any sort of dirt racing whatsoever, and figured why not kind of just jump in and see what I can manage to do with the cars. I have watched a little bit-ish of some dirt ovals. So not only the driving style is completely different, I've not played the game for a very long time. I don't really know what I'm doing with this sort of racing. It was going to be an interesting experience. It was going to be an interesting experience to try to jump into this and see what I could just about try and extract out of the car, and kind of hope for the best, really. Now, I did run a little bit of practice. I kind of ran for about 15-20 minutes before jumping into an actual race. For my first race, I managed to qualify on pole. The way iRacing works is before the race starts, you do a for the oval racing, we get like a 2-lap qualifying session. So I went out and tried something. Now, the very first race I did was on a slightly shorter dirt oval than the one that I was running on that testing bit at the start. I might have forgotten how the start sequence works on iRacing. Well, I say I forgot how the start sequence works. When you do the oval racing, certainly with this stuff, the race begins when the pace truck pulls into the pit lane rather than when there are green lights, and I was waiting for green lights. That was, I guess, slight inexperience perhaps from me. Either way, we got going. It wasn't the worst start in the world. I was finding myself kind of running along the bottom in all of this. Now, unfortunately for me, as I did manage to retake the lead, I got turned within a couple of laps. We were pointing the wrong way, facing everybody, the whole unrushing pack of cars, desperately trying to, well, I'd say desperately, just hoping not to get collected. Amazingly, yeah, we got tagged. We got turned around in front of everybody. Somehow, everybody actually did a really, really good job of managing to avoid clattering into the side of my car. So we spun it around, we got going, and I went chasing after the number 9, and that car was pretty quick, actually. The green and black car, I don't think it set a qualifying lap in this, but it was actually pretty fast, it was nice to have something to chase. And as we were going, we were now working our way back up through the field against, well, I mean, the blue car seems to have had a fairly heavy hit with something, judging by the front of it. It got a fair old chunk taken out the front of the bonnet. I was finding running lower down. It tends to be, whenever I do oval racing, I tend to find more speed lower down on these circuits. I struggle running up against the wall. I don't really know what I'm doing in terms of lines here. So if you run lower down on the circuit, you tend to go into the corner, or on these corners you run into the corner faster, but you tend to be a little slower on the exit. You run higher up on the oval, you get a faster exit, which is kind of what we were seeing here as I was trying to work my way past the number 9, as I could get, I could kind of get past on the way into the corner, but it's on the exit where the green car would get the better run, although I finally managed to kind of slide up in front of it, block the run, and that would be me up a position. Now, overtaking doing this sort of stuff is very different. Unlike a normal circuit race where you do an overtake on a corner, here it takes laps. It can take 3-4 laps to set up a pass on another car. It's just a very, very different style of racing. But this, of course, this was my very first race. I was in the rookie class, and, well, there was a fair amount of dodging of mayhem going on there. It was a spinner. Just as I'd managed to work my way past the 11, somebody up ahead spun, had to take panicky avoiding action. I then went to turn in, realised there was a green car underneath me, and it was my turn now to find myself running quite high up on the circuit. We were having to be careful of kind of lap down a few damaged cars littering the circuit. I will say that the replay doesn't make these things look particularly fast. I mean, they're not crazy fast. It feels a lot faster when you are driving them, I'll say that much. But yeah, I wasn't really finding much speed on the outside at this point. With all that hard work, all that effort it taken to get past the green car, all fell apart immediately when things went much, much more wrong for the number 11 as we had to then dodge through everything down there. One of the cars and managed to spin in front. And of course, when you're committed to a corner with these, the way they drive, the way they slide through a corner, if you're committed and something happens up ahead that you didn't see, you can't avoid it necessarily. You can't turn out of the way because you're so limited to grip, you're probably already sliding through a corner or something. It's very, very difficult to suddenly change direction if you do notice something going on. I spent the remainder of this particular race desperately trying to chase down the green car. I was there. I mean, I had some good speed in this, although on the final lap I overcooked it. I was trying to be a bit too aggressive. I mean, I was running out of time. I had to try something, and I was just super aggressive in that corner and actually got a bit too much sideways. The green car very nearly came to grief with a back marker on the final turn, if you like, we crossed the line, and it was going to be a third place in my first race. Considering I was pointing the wrong way on the first lap, I was fairly happy, and I had some good speed in the car. I was running fairly well. Actually had some good overtakes as well, good battle with the green vehicle. So for a first race, not too bad. The next race I took part in, this was the next day, we went to the larger USA Speedway. I don't know. It's a larger dirt oval, about 10 seconds a lap longer than the previous one. Again, qualified on pole. This time, I was hoping to not end up being pointing the wrong way off the start. Now, again, I was waiting for the green in this one. Everyone actually well behaved. Everyone actually waited for the green rather than going the second the pace truck turned off, which I feel is a more legit way to start these races, but you know, that might just be me, as everything chucks the car sideways through this first corner. Now, there was some bumping and banging further back. A couple of cars ended up pointing the wrong way in all of this, which a little bit unfortunate. Now, for me, things went very wrong immediately. Now, I did admittedly get perhaps a little too much of a slide and a bit slow mid-corner. I was a bit miffed, though, in many ways. You know, the vehicle following should not just be clattering into the side, and once again, I was pointing the wrong way. Once again, I'd got away with relatively minor damage. It was a small hit. It was, what was annoying, it was a small enough hit just to turn the car. It was just enough that I was already, I guess, on the limit of what I had in terms of grip, and all it needed was that little bit of a bump, that little bit of assistance, and that was all it was going to take to have my car, I guess, go sort of rotate too far to be able to save it. I didn't get collected by anybody else, and I wasn't the only one, as we had to take avoiding action to not clatter the side of the blue car through all of that. You see the car behind me had a lot worse first lap. So, as the laps started to tick down a little bit, I started to catch back up to the field once more. There were a few incidents for cars up ahead. I was trying to chase down this kind of blue and black car. I was trying a few different things. There was some panicky avoiding. Now, that one, annoyingly, I say annoyingly for me, that one got me I think it got me a 4 times incident. I think it got me a 4 times incident for a collision with a car. I want to know quite what iRacing thinks I was supposed to do in that one, when I aimed for a gap and the car rolled backwards down a hill, and I'm already, you know, you're already committed to that corner. I couldn't even see there was a car stricken there when I committed to turning into that corner. I thought I'd done quite well to not just clatter the side of it, but apparently iRacing thought otherwise. Either way, I mean, it was the only contact I got in that race, so not terrible, but still. So yeah, we were trying to work our way past the blue car. Again, this was a similar, I guess, in a similar way to the race I'd had in the previous round, trying to get past that green car. I was taking the sort of tight line on the way in, kind of throw the vehicle on the way into the corner in the hope that I could slide up in front. It wasn't quite enough. This is where it comes back to that hold. It takes multiple laps sometimes to get that pass done. In fact, through this one, I actually not quite got as good an exit. So we're still looking for that way past. We're looking to try and maintain enough speed through the corner, because the blue car's always going to get that faster run on the exit. Again, we have, I mean, that lap there, both corners basically ended up in the same way. We're chucking the car in very sideways. Now, I'm kind of hoping the blue car might make a mistake. I usually get a little too carried away this time around, a little too aggressive. Yeah, I'm kind of half hoping the blue car might make a mistake up the top. May just, for whatever reason, all it takes is, you know, that little loss of momentum somewhere, and I would have been able to get past. I then, well, not directly alongside, ended up running it a little bit higher up. I was trying a lot of lines. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. I was completely making this up as I go along. Really, it was kind of follow what some of the other cars were doing that seemed to be relatively quick, follow what seemed to be getting lap time, and followed what didn't end up having my car pointing the wrong way. If I'm kind of really super aggressive turning into a corner, it was kind of, well, I could end up spinning the car, so I was trying to play a little bit safe in these races, although this time around we just send it very, very sideways through all of that. But it was, you know, we were back there, we were back underneath the blue car, kind of got an okay speed. We were still looking for a way past. This time I was closest I'd been, so it's just sort of throw it up the inside, and sure enough, that little mistake is what I needed from the blue car. It's actually very, very high up on the oval there, and it couldn't quite carry that speed on the exit. And that's what I've been trying to stop it from being able to do for a while. And as soon as it couldn't maintain that momentum on the outside, that is what I needed. Basically, that's what I needed to do with my car, and we were thankfully now clear. Trying to, again, it was just continuing trying to work my way up through the field, make as much as I could, and we started to pull away a little bit. It wasn't a crazy amount at that, but we did start to pull away, and then more issues would go on for vehicles ahead. Unfortunately, my great race with the 4 would end with that. That was one of the front-running cars, actually, had got itself in trouble. The 2 leaders had tangled, and that was good news for me. They'd lost time, and I was now starting to get within, I was in visual range of the lead car, as I was now up into second place, and the lead car, funnily enough, happened to be the car that had put me round on the first lap. So the laps ticked down again a little bit more. These were 20-lap races in this particular event, and I was actually catching quite quickly by the end of this. Helped, admittedly, by the leader struggling to get past some... I say some laps, it was lapped traffic, but it's actually quite quick lap traffic as well in all of this. And as they were kind of slowing each other, or as the leader was being slowed down a little bit, I was able to make the most of, I say, clean air. The leader was really struggling coming off this corner here that would be, I guess, the sort of the corner heading towards the start-finish line. The leader was struggling to make any speed out of there, and thankfully that was a corner that I was managing to still make some good time. Now, I knew I had to get past. If I wanted to win this race, I had to get past the 1 very quickly. Thankfully, I made it work. Now, I don't know, to be fair, the 1 might have actually been spun, but it might be involved. It was involved with contact somewhere. I don't know whether it was intentionally unhappy and not keen on letting the number 3 past, or whether it's just I happened to be at the right place at the right time to get past. Either way, as we headed on to the final lap, I was there. We had caught, and I had 1 lap to try and make something work. However, I was going to have to try and do it the tough way. All of the overtaking I've been doing so far had been on the inside, and I was now having to try and be adventurous. And I was having to go for that, try and make something work with the extra exit speed. I didn't really know what I was doing on this part of the circuit, other than kind of hoping that something would work and just be able to get on the power soon enough. And thankfully for me, the leader had a big wiggle coming out of the last corner. We beat it on the run to the line. Just, I think it was less than 0.2 of a second separated us on that one. I think actually if the leader hadn't had a big wiggle, I might have still got it. I had such a good run off that last turn that I was carrying so much speed. But I had such a good run, I had to panic and swerve just not to smash into the back of the number 3. And the final corner of the final lap is when we managed to get the pass done. I was very, very happy. I was very happy with that race indeed. Now, we got to ride on board for this next one a little bit. So, first couple of races had been, I'd qualified on pole and probably been the fastest car in both of them. This one, I think the game had put me in a slightly more difficult race, which is fine, you've got to race against faster cars if you are going to improve. Also, I do apologize, there's a slight weird lighting glitch going on with this replay. It was going on a little bit actually during the race as well. Sometimes it's around, sometimes it isn't. I don't know what's going on with it personally, but there we go. So yeah, I'm starting from the second row. I'm on the outside of the second row. Now, something I should point out at this stage, again, hadn't been doing dirt ovals very much. I hadn't bound a button to do the tear off, like the visor tear off on this. And yes, in iRacing, the visor gets muddy. Now, the game will auto remove it over time, which I didn't realise there was a button that you needed to bind for it as such. I just thought the game removed it if it got a bit bad. It seems to be a bit inconsistent as to when the game decides to remove it. Either way, you're going to quickly see the visibility issues that I started coming up against in all of this. So, first lap of this race, it was a little bit scruffy from a couple of the cars ahead, and, well, the opportunity presented itself, and I was again going to be around the outside of somebody, just trying to not hit the wall. I must have got pretty bloody close through all of that, but we managed to make it stick against one of the multicoloured cars, carrying some fairly good speed. I was making some different lines work. Well, I say it was just about making some different lines work. I still don't really know what I was doing, and I'm not going to say too much. The 7 got too much oversteer on the exit, trying to get on that power, and that promoted me up to second place. Now, that's a relatively successful start for me in this one. You can also see, we're only a couple of laps into this, you can already see the visibility issues in this particular race was the worst I've ever had it in terms of visibility as well. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just a random chance mud gets flicked at the screens. I don't quite know how the game deals with it, but within a couple of laps, we were, And this is accurate. I have had a tiny little experience of doing iRacing a little while ago in horrific weather conditions, and yeah, mud and visibility is a very big problem with this sort of thing. Now, I knew there was a car on the inside into this corner. I was trying to give it as much space as I could. They just carried too much speed into that one and clattered the back of my car. We lost, we're going to lose the position in this one. We lost a little bit of time through all of it. It wasn't really the worst collision I've ever had to deal with. It was one of those slightly annoying, but not completely and utterly the worst. We fell to third, and I wasn't too annoyed. I was still treating all of this as it's just kind of learning. The car, the 7 that's ahead of us, it seemed quick. Once it made that little mistake falling back behind, it very quickly caught up with me. I almost wasn't too annoyed with it passing. It meant I could kind of sit and follow it and try and learn and see what I could do. It did pull a little bit of gap out from me trying to chase down the leader. This is the visibility I was trying to race with here. It was not great. You could just about see enough to know where you were going, but yeah, it's not really ideal. It would be scarily easy for cars to be hidden amongst all the mud, to not be able to see something until the last minute. Now, we were running, I guess sort of like 1, 2, 3. We were running, and I think the car behind me was a little bit bigger gap. I think it was a couple of seconds back. We were all kind of running at this gap. We weren't really fighting side by side. Unlike the first couple of races where there had been a lot of chaos with spun cars, as the game put me in some slightly faster lobbies, like maybe some slightly more experienced lobbies and whatever. We saw less lapped traffic. We saw less wrecked cars blocking the track because, you're turning into these corners is already pretty poor in terms of visibility. It'd be very easy for a stricken spun car to be hidden behind all of the mud. Once we kind of settled into this rhythm, nobody was really going anywhere. Nobody was really changing the gap. Eventually the game decides to clear the windscreen. And look at this, a beautiful vision all of a sudden. I have since sorted the game out so I can remove the tear offs myself, because that's not fun. It's not fun at all to drive like that. I don't know if there's a limit to them. It'd be fun if there was. Well, it could be fun if it was. It could be really annoying if there was a limit, but I guess that's realistic. Either way, the 7 pushed it too hard trying to chase down the leader. I think it was starting to chase down the leader. Unfortunately, in trying to do that, started going a bit too aggressive and made a couple of mistakes, which put me right behind. Unfortunately, in that, I had to really, really slow down not to spin the car ahead of me. And you've got to be so careful with these going on the brakes and whatnot. It's really easy to spin yourself if you get the weight transfer wrong in the car. Now, this was setting up to be a pretty interesting race for second. The leader was too far gone at this point. Nothing that we could do about it. Unfortunately, our fantastic race for second would be cut short by a spun car. As I said, there had been less mayhem, less broken lap down cars in the way. I don't know what on earth the black car was doing there. I know it was trying to get to the pit lane. I don't know. It was doing something stupid on the start line, and sadly, that would ruin the chances of a close race, really, for second. That's how the rest of this race would go. I got to second. The number 7 did recover from that, but it sat about 3 seconds back from me, and nothing really happened for the rest of the race. I was on pace with the leader in this one, but we'd lost too much time. Me having to avoid the blue car spinning, or avoid spinning the blue car, I should say, and then that collision had dropped us a few seconds back and certainly wasn't going to be able to catch. So, our next race, further down the grid on this particular one, I'd had a bad qualifying. So, as I said, you get 2 laps of qualifying. I'd messed up both of them. Doesn't really help. Again, we were now running in faster lobbies. If I'd had a good lap, I could have probably been on the second row. I completely made an absolute hash of them, but that's okay. It meant that there was going to be excitement for me. That's what I was hoping for. Anyway, it meant there was going to be some overtaking. I was going to have to work through traffic. As I said, it's all learning experience, really, in this. The number 7 did not have a particularly good run through this first corner. It was a little bit slow. You're trying to pick your way through. You're trying to make up places where you can. You've got to be really careful because a lot of cars take a lot of different lines in here. That's something that I did come across. There's a lot of different lines going on. I was kind of just hugging the bottom. I've gone back to my default Alex Oval Racing strategy of just hug the bottom of the circuit and things will maybe possibly be okay. Now, ahead of us, the 11 bopped the... I think it was the 3. They got a little nudge and shot the 3 up the circuit. I'll make the most of the opportunities that present themselves in this one. If there's going to be opportunities to find ways past, I'm going to go and take what I can from the race. We were running really quite on the bottom. The switch and behind the turquoise car gets very sideways into the door of somebody. but it's fine. Up in front, there was quite a lot of side-by-side battling going on for the lead position. Now, I was noticing that my kind of hug the bottom of the circuit it would work. It would certainly work in traffic, as we were running on these kind of more not straight up overtaking laps. A few cars were trying different lines, and I was kind of experimenting. Again, I was following what the cars ahead of me were doing. I was experimenting with stuff. The number 7 got everything wrong on the exit. This is not the first time, certainly won't be the last time you see a car bobbling across the grass down there. It's really easy to do with these cars. You slide the car an awful lot, absolutely, that's how they drive, but you can still get too sideways, and sometimes there's like a point of no return that you get to, that's the car that then starts actually spinning, which is, it's as I said, it's a really different thing to try and drive. I understand this sort of racing might not be for everybody, as number 3 then does exactly the same thing, and that's across the grass on the inside. Yeah, it's a completely different sort of driving, completely different sort of racing. It is very good fun. You've got to think about a lot of different things with the vehicles. I mean, for me in this race was this was a helpful learning as I was watching all the different lines that were going on. I was trying all the different lines as well. I mean, what we had going on, the battle we had going on ahead of us, the 11 was doing the lines that I had tended to be doing, kind of the really sort of hug the inside as you try and sneak past, while the number 2 was going for the much higher lines, and he's just focusing all of that, all of your lap time is coming from the corner exit. It was running right up against the wall on these exits of the corners. And this went on for a while. I was sat watching this battle. In fact, it was quite good fun because the leaders, 3 of the leaders were all fighting side by side and swapping positions. The 3 of us were kind of all relatively close together. I wasn't quite in the fight just yet, but was starting to get there. Sort of, I'd make a little mistake and drop a few car lengths back. These 2 would start slowing each other down a smidge, and then I'd catch back up. I was never quite looking for a way past. We were dropping all the vehicles behind us. We'd made a nice little gap back to those ones. Now up ahead, the black and blue car that had been in the lead group I don't know if it made a mistake or got involved in contact. Whatever happened, it got dropped back. Was then in this fight. Now there are going to be 4 cars in this little squabble. The 2 got things wrong coming off of that corner. I'm still taking this kind of middling road. The 2 actually just was very slow through this next bit, and too many cars tried to fit into one place. The 2 ends up getting in trouble trying to go to its preferred line. It's so many cars in one place. Again, I'm going to pick up the pieces. And that was kind of what I was going for here. It was stay out of trouble, run hopefully relatively consistent, relatively fast, pick up the pieces where you can, and if you happen to be able to have a good battle with somebody, go for it. And just, kind of follow the cars ahead. And the more they fought, they kind of kept each other slow. And the leaders were back to fighting as well. I mean, it wasn't particularly big spread between all of us at this particular stage of the race. I was trying to follow the kind of black and blue car a little bit, because that seemed to be running very, very quickly. Now, the 11 got things wrong. It actually hit the wall on the inside, and it was all sorts of terrible through that corner. The 1 was starting to get a little bit impatient in all of this, as it was quick, and it was having trouble trying to find a way past. We head through this next corner. I was trying maybe a little different line. I got too much oversteer actually on the exit through that particular corner. The leaders, they were still having a big old fight. I tried the slightly dive to the inside, got it wrong, very nearly speared the back of the 1 car there. Managed to just about bail out of that. It cost me a bunch of time in doing that one. And the 1 the 1 was getting a bit impatient. It got a little aggressive. Unfortunately, they came together. The problem was it would be me that came off worse, and the number 2 also came off pretty badly in all of that one. The 3 having to go underneath the stricken 2. Yeah, there's not much I could have done. I was committed to turning into that corner at the point that I did. Like, looking back at it, I should have realised they were fighting rather aggressively, and I should have got even higher. Like, I was running a bit higher up the course than they were, but as they came together, they were trying to sort of pull the cars apart and whatnot. I was just wrong place, wrong time. If I'd been much higher up against the wall, I might have made it through without being involved in that. In that contact, if I'd realised they were going to be in trouble, then I probably should have been running a little bit higher up the circuit. But a little bit of inexperience from me, and an accident that I just couldn't avoid in time. Sadly, ended up me pointing the wrong way. It didn't completely, I say it didn't completely ruin the race. As far as finishing position goes, sure, it ruined the race for me. But I went back to having a fight with the two. We'd been running close together on the circuit before all of that happened. Yeah, we'd been involved in the same accident, but, we thought we might as well, we're just going to go back to continuing this race. I was still trying these different lines a little bit. I was finding more speed running higher up on the circuit than I had been doing before. I mean, yeah, we were running all the way up here now and making some okay lap times. My past lap position was a little bit funky, if I'm honest. That was not the... it was kind of just dive to the inside and somehow get it stopped. Sadly, having worked to get the pass done, I then promptly threw it all away with just a little bit too much sliding, a little too aggressive, a little bit too much oversteered. Yeah, after all that hard work, we'd got past. We immediately, I say immediately, a couple of laps later go and lose it. And then the next corner, the 2 gets too much sideways, and I was committed on that one, and we bumped. It was another one of those really stupid, small, minor little bumps. And I mean, like, the 2 would have saved. The 2 wouldn't have spun that car entirely. It's just I was already committed to the corner. Now I decided to slow down and wait for the car, as it is the gentlemanly thing to do. Yeah, the 2 had kind of made a mistake to get itself sliding. I'd also kind of made a mistake in that, well, the 2 had got too sideways and lost all of its speed mid-corner. I'd also barreled in there with a lot of speed, and yeah, I don't know. I'd say it's the gentlemanly thing to do. I didn't intend to spin the car. We just carried way too much speed, and that's how the rest of the race would go. In this one, having spun the car, we got going again. I proceeded to try and chase it down for the remainder of the race. Was sadly running out of laps. This race hadn't gone to plan. Hadn't gone to plan at all. There'd been a fair few more dings along the way, a few mistakes. I'd learnt stuff, and was learning some different lines, was making speed in some different places around the circuit, done some sort of, I think, slightly different overtakes. It'd been a fun race. It'd been different. Sadly, yeah, could not find a way past that car in the closing stages, and while my car was a bit battered by the end of it, it had a good time. I think it was 8th place in the end from that one, but it was still a very, very enjoyable race. And there we go. That is a look at some of my first forays into the world of dirt oval racing. It is something really very, very different. Completely different sort of driving. I highly recommend you do give it a try if you have iRacing. As I said, I know oval racing might not be everyone's cup of tea, and that's kind of fair enough, but it is, yeah, it's just a very, very different challenge with the cars. I'm going to do a lot more of this because I really, really enjoy it. I'd love to do more of this sort of stuff. I actually would love to do actual oval racing and sort of dirt ovals, a lot of the kind of, I guess, like entry-level stuff. It's really cool. It's really good fun. I love that this is a thing now you can do on iRacing. I want to try and get better. I'm going to try and get better. I'm going to try and run more consistently, less mistakes, less silly accidents, and see what I can do with the cars. Hopefully, there might be some more iRacing content. There might be some more sim racing stuff. If you folks are interested, do let me know in the comment section what you might like to see me try. If you want to see me do some more dirt oval racing, some, I guess, tarmac ovals, let me know. And maybe we shall see some more of this. That, though, is going to be it from me. Thank you all very much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.